Are you getting excited for this game?
Yes.
I'm excited for this game.
Starting to get there now. Usually it takes till about the coach's press conference was today, which is usually kind of a snore. But apparently there was some funny comments there and a little bit of comedy. But that's kind of the kickoff. That's when I really start to you sink your teeth into it. The teams arrived yesterday, but that's generally kind of a nothing day. It's you just get them coming off the plane. But once the coaches get there. I'm with Lemon Drops there. This is a tough one. I keep going back and forth, and I keep outthinking myself.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, now Hamilton has more tape on Zach Collaros and what they're doing with him. It seemed like La Police wanted to throw the ball way downfield with him against the Riders, but maybe he just saw something with the Riders DBs, and then you think, well, yeah, but now Richie Hall's had more time to see more film on Dane Evans. So I keep going back and forth. This is a tricky one to come to a conclusion. I feel for Sean Lemon having to make his pick here on a Wednesday morning.
I know, but he knows right coming into the week, and they've been good to him. I mean, Winnipeg has, and that's interesting because they're the home team in the Grey Cup, so they get to choose the uniforms first, and they chose the road whites. Interesting, but that's what they've ridden all the way through the playoffs, through this tough stretch. So, I love his analysis, and I love his pick. I'm not making one yet, not for a couple more days.
There's no secret that I am pulling for the Blue Bombers to win. I just think Hamilton, for some reason, they seem healthier and they seem fresher. I think it's taken a lot for Winnipeg to win in Calgary and in Saskatchewan. But fortunately for them, they're not done yet. I mean, there's a whole cosmic universal thing here about the drought ending and the team of destiny and all that. I mean, Hamilton's going to be good for a while. They're set up that way by Eric Tillman. Whereas with Winnipeg, even if they lose in the Grey Cup, the whole thing could be blown out. Like, there's a lot riding on this.
It does feel like it's put together more with spit and duct tape a little bit.
Yes.
To get it. But like you said, they went to Calgary and won. They went to Saskatchewan and won. It's hard to dismiss that.
Yeah.
It is really hard. It's, battle tested, I think is the word that Sean Lemon used. I mean, it is. There's something that seems to be a bit galvanizing with those guys.
Mm-hmm. It's charming.
Yeah.
There's a charm to it.
Well, I don't know if I want to ever put charm and Winnipeg in the same sentence, Rod.
Come on, we got a lot of Winnipeg viewers and listeners, as you know. Interesting assessment from Sean Lemon on the Riders, too, by the way, that they peaked. And I don't think anybody would argue with that. They peaked to get to 13 wins and host that game. Yeah. I thought it was a good assessment by him, and like everybody, I just saw a tweet from Cody Fajardo that he's on his way to Calgary for the awards. Right. And I hope that he wins over Brandon Banks. But I guess that also, too, comes down to a vote. But Cody Fajardo might be the most popular guy in Calgary this week, given the amount of Saskatchewan fans that reside in Calgary and will be a Grey Cup week. But, do you not agree that the Riders peaked in the West Final?
You know what? I don't know if it was peaked, but it was kind of their Achilles heel all year. And we said it last week going into this. They have had the inability to finish drives, and we've seen it all year. Yeah. They get that good field position. I think it was in the one Winnipeg game, maybe the Labor Day game. But they're starting on the opponent's side of half, and it's a field goal, and it's a field goal. And it was that old Achilles heel. We said they can't finish drives, and that's essentially what cost them in the end. I thought they played a pretty decent game. I thought the defense, they had some hiccups, but they did hold them to 20 points at the end of the day, which is in the CFL. That's a pretty good defensive performance. They kind of kept the reins on Harris. They certainly kept the reins on Strevler. The offense moved the ball. Fajardo threw for 366 yards. Question play calling, and of course inside the 5, yes, all those things. But it was that old Achilles heel. They couldn't finish drives, and they got away with it at certain times in the regular season, but it finally came back to bite them in the butt.
Yeah.
Your assessment?
They did. This team accomplished more than definitely more than we expected.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. And that's nothing new. And probably more than they should have accomplished. And you're right. They did. They peaked before, at the end to get to 13 wins, to finish first, get that home playoff game. That was their peak. That was their victory for the season. And I think everything else, they were playing with house money, and they just didn't have it in the tank to win. And it didn't come down to the final plays of the game. Didn't come down to punching it in those 2 times. They just couldn't get it done all game long. And so, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, just They'll finish.
They're moving in the right direction.
Consider how often did you hear Willie Jefferson's name called in that game? Not much. Like, they did a good job in some key areas of the game, but where it counted, getting across that line, that one line that matters.
Yeah.
And think about how close Powell was. Inches. It was inches from getting in and tying that game. But
I want to mention here, in the time we have left, an hour one, which is significant time. Prairie Mobile text line is always open. 306-840-8777. Prairie Mobile, your authorized SaskTel mobility dealer. Buy now, pay later at Prairie Mobile. All smartphones are $0 every day using SaskTel Plus pricing. From Dan in Saskatoon, he says, congrats to the two SJ players who made the Canada West camp roster for the World Junior A Challenge. Carter McNarland of Humboldt and Nick Porterfield of Melville. Also, congrats to the three Sask boys playing out of province that made the camp: Regina's Lucas Sillinger and Stanley Cooley and Prince Albert's Owen Ozar.
Okay.
So that from Dan in Saskatoon there. A big howdy and hello to everybody at Wendell Clark's Classic Bar and Grill in Saskatoon. They're watching this morning. Good morning, boys and gals, and enjoyed stopping in there on Saturday. Every day they have us on at Wendell Clark's. And this morning I was getting an oil change, and you got to love the oil change places that hand you a coffee and a newspaper.
Yeah.
And they're like, I'm like, I don't need the news. No, I'll take the newspaper. Let's see what Murray McCormick's saying in there today. Interesting commentary in the leader post on the Riders free agents coming back.
Okay.
But the nugget that I took out of it was Craig Dickinson saying that his philosophy meshes with Jeremy O'Day's, and that is that it should all be built around the quarterback. And he said, we feel good because we got Cody Fajardo. Yeah. The offense will all stem from there. Well, yeah, it seems very elementary, but I look back to the Chris Jones plan for 3 years. Did it not very much look like, hey, we can survive our quarterbacking because we're going to win with defense?
Yeah.
It seems like a completely opposite philosophy. Now, that's not to say that he didn't want a marquee quarterback. I've heard plans of what the Riders were doing to woo Mike Riley, and it involved private planes and jets and flying in his family for every game and swanky accommodations. Yeah, they were loading up for that marquee pivot, but in his 3 years, he didn't have it.
No,
he did not have it. So I just wonder, is the philosophy different under O'Day and Dickinson, that the quarterback is the cornerstone?
On its face, yeah, I think you're right. I think it does appear that way. Chris Jones is a defensive guy. That seemed to be his focus. Damn near worked. They were close in spite of the quarterback
Didn't get
play.
to a great cup.
Well, and that's the other thing. Moderately successful. Craig Dickinson comes in here. Yes, some of this is the carryover from the regime, but the one key factor, the one key difference that I think we can all agree on was the guy behind center. And they finished first in the West.
But that
better than Chris Jones did in 3 years. So
yeah, but that wasn't great.
Hard to argue.
Yeah, that wasn't O'Day and Dickinson, though, going out and getting Cody Fajardo as the marquee quarterback and saying that's the case. They went out and got Zach Caleros to be the marquee quarterback of this football team, right? And they had him, and they paid the money. So I do think it does say that they want to have focus on that position, because they could have easily went with Isaac Harker, Cody Fajardo, and somebody else like Brian Bennett or whoever to be the third, and build around this good defense that was already in place. But, they missed out on Bo Levi Mitchell and Mike Riley, and it would, depending on how much they bid on those two, I don't know. But they missed out on them, and if they were in the talks, that shows further that they wanted to get a marquee guy. Whether they went after Jonathan Jennings or not at the time. And then they realized we still need a marquee quarterback, and that's why they brought in Zach Caleros. So I'm with you. I think that's part of the focus now, is that we got to build around a quarterback, and they realize that.
Well, and here's the other thing. You could build around the defense as much as you want. What was the turnovers in that game?
Yeah.
3-0. The Riders' defense failed to force a turnover. And they had a couple of opportunities, but they failed to force a turnover. Wow. You can't win if you're basing everything on the defensive side of the ball, which was kind of Chris Jones's philosophy. If you don't cause turnovers, which they did not in that West Final, then it's all for naught.
You're watching Rod Pedersen on demand. For more of the Rod Pedersen Show, visit rodpedersen.com or follow Rod Pedersen on social media.